Hey, what is up guys, it's the AZ Gamer here, and today I have an awesome $450 PC build guide for you guys out there looking to build a PC that is on par or better than the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One at a relatively low price. First and foremost, there are a few things I'd like to address with you guys before we get into it. All the prices from this build are from Amazon and Newegg, whichever is lowest. I did not include tax and shipping into the total cost because you might not have to pay tax for either of these websites depending on where you live, and most people get free shipping with Newegg, Premiere, or Amazon Prime. I did not include an operating system like Windows in the part list and total price because lots of people prefer to use Linux or have their own way of getting their hands on a Windows key. Of course, without the operating system, I also did not include a disk tray, but those are only about $15 if you need one. Now, without further ado, let's get straight into it. Starting off with the CPU, we have the AMD A8 6600K, which is a nice little quad-core CPU clocked at an awesome 3.9 GHz with some overclocking capability should you have the right cooling and motherboard. It uses AMD's fairly popular FM2 socket and is actually an APU, meaning it contains a CPU and GPU into one little chip, although I'd only recommend the integrated GPU for light games like Minecraft and older games. It uses the 32nm process and only has a TDP of 100 watts, which is pretty good for an AMD chip since they aren't as power efficient as Intel processors. The max cores video games need today is about 4 cores, so the CPU should last quite a while. And the reasoning behind the CPU selection is that even though there are cheaper dual-core CPUs like the Pentium G3258 that would perform better in certain games, a couple recent games like Far Cry 4 and Dragon Age Inquisition don't have support for dual-core processors, meaning we are entering the age of gaming where having at least a quad-core CPU is required if you want to play all games. The AMD A8 6600K comes with a stock CPU cooler, which gets the job done but can't handle any overclocking. Priced at about $80 at Amazon, it's a fairly low-cost CPU for the nice performance it gives. Now, onto the motherboard. The motherboard I thought would fit best with the budget and CPU choice is the MSI A58M E35 Micro ATX motherboard. It's a nice small form factor motherboard with 2 RAM slots and houses the FM2 Plus socket, a socket in which AMD claims will be used for many of their future CPUs in mind, which gives some future proofing for this low cost build. The supported RAM speeds are DDR3 1333 MHz to DDR3 2133 MHz. Any standard DDR3 memory should work perfectly though. The motherboard does not have any USB 3.0 ports or Crossfire or SLI support, but at its very good price of about $52 on Newegg, you get what you pay for. It's got 6 SATA 3 gigabits per second hard drive ports, so you can have sufficient storage, and the 2 RAM slots include support up to 32 gigs of RAM. Overall, the board is quite sturdy and sufficient for gaming needs, although I would not recommend overclocking the CPU with this board. Next up is the RAM. For current day gaming needs, I feel like 8GB of RAM would fit the bill for years to come while being speedy and efficient, so I went with the G-Skill Aries DDR3 1600 MHz RAM. It's 8GB split into 2 4GB of RAM sticks, which take up both motherboard RAM slots, but 8GB should last a very long time for gaming. I personally never believed in the thought of 4GB of RAM being enough for a gaming-centric PC build, because games I've played like Call of Duty Advanced Warfare and Watch Dogs always use up more than 5 gigs of RAM. In the future, many more games will require more memory, which is why Sony and Microsoft opted for 8GB of RAM on their next-gen consoles, the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4. G-Skill is a reliable brand, and the Aries has a nice speed of 1600 MHz with a decent cast latency of 9. Priced at a crazy low price of $55 for a limited time, it's really a no-brainer. For storage, I went with the standard Hitachi 1TB hard drive. It has a good speed of 7,200 RPM with a decent cache of 32 MB and uses the SATA 3 gigabits per second interface found on our motherboard selection. I'd recommend dishing out an extra $10 towards the Western Digital Caviar Blue 1TB just because it contains 64 MB of cache as opposed to 32, but it's definitely not a requirement. 1 terabyte of storage, which is approximately 1,000 gigabytes, is more than enough to store lots of games, pictures, videos, etc. Games may be growing in size lately, but 1 terabyte is double what the next-gen consoles offer, except for the Xbox One Call of Duty bundle. At $48 from Amazon, you cannot go wrong with this hard drive. For the GPU, I opted for the MSI Radeon R7 265. The R7 no matter what brand, is the exact equivalent of the GPU found in the PlayStation 4, but with the option to overclock, meaning this PC can easily outperform both next-gen consoles. It contains a sufficient 2GB of GDDR5 video memory, which is good enough for high textures in the latest games today, and runs at an overclockable 900 MHz core clock speed. With the R7 this PC can run all games at high settings at a full 1080p with at least 40 FPS depending on what game. It contains an HDMI port, a display port, and 2 DVI ports with support for multiple monitors. While this video card does support Crossfire, which is running 2 graphics cards to increase performance heavily, the motherboard does not support that. MSI's cooling system is fantastic with its GPU and runs quiet too. Priced at $125 with an amazing price to performance ratio on Amazon, there's no reason why to choose another GPU. For the power supply, I went with the OCZ 500W 80+ certified power supply. Nothing truly special, but it gets the job done. 500 watts should be just enough to power all the components with some good efficiency. It's actually a semi-modular power supply, meaning many of the cables have to be added on, so you know which ones you want, which ones you don't, which helps quite a bit with cable management. The efficiency rating is about 82%, which is quite good in fact, and priced at $35 on Newegg for a limited time, this is the best choice. Finally, I went with the Enermax Ostrog ATX case for the build. It contains a large window on the side panel, which is a nice added feature, and the case contains a total of 7 fan slots, 2 of which are 140mm and the rest are 120mm. Cable management is pretty decent, not too shabby, and there are 3 slots for disk drives and about 5 possible slots for storage. It fits any size motherboard actually, except for all the extra large eATX motherboards, and has sufficient cooling. I definitely recommend the case while it's priced at $45 on Newegg with a $15 off promo going on as of the date this video was made. All in all, this PC build is a very good and low cost one for gaming. You should be able to max out many games at 1080p while playing at standard high settings on the most demanding ones like Crysis 3, Metro Last Light, etc. This machine outperforms the PS4 in about every game except for the terribly optimized ones like Assassin's Creed Unity. The PS4 may be cheaper at $400, but remember that PC games are always cheaper on Steam with constant sales going on frequently with free online, so in the long run, this PC is more powerful and cheaper. Anyway guys, thanks for watching and be sure to subscribe, like, and drop a comment below on what PC build you plan on building, whether it be this one or your own. See you guys on the next video.